Hello guys, my name is Conrad and this is my house. I just ran up the stairs and I'm out of breath. Did I just f***ing forget my coffee? I went downstairs to get my coffee and I grabbed my AirPods. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, okay, I'm back. So as you guys know, this channel is a conversation with you guys, the viewer. And every episode I ask for questions in either the comments or in the form of an email to conradjohnsonvideos@gmail.com. And we actually got one of those today. So first thing we're gonna talk about is a question I got on my previous episode. Yoondog3 writes, do you think people's names influence how they present themselves? Eyeball emoji, monkey emoji. Now this question is actually from my girlfriend, so hello Mila, I miss you. I like the way that this question is phrased, because I think that this is actually a more interesting and tangible idea than just the pure idea of nominative determinism, which is the idea that people's names influence their important life decisions, such as places to live or careers to take part in. In the original discussions of nominative determinism, it was all about, like, are people named Louis more likely to live in the city of St. Louis? Or are people named Florence more likely to live in Florida? And that argument, supported itself with a lot of cherry-picked evidence. It was pretty flimsy. And I don't think it sufficiently took into account the idea that people living in St. Louis might be more likely to name their kid Louis. So Louis is more likely to live in St. Louis. I don't think people are moving to St. Louis because they're named Louis as much. But that's a different question than do people's names influence how they present themselves? Because that one, I think, has a lot of weight to it. I talked about this with my friend Asa last night, and Asa and I have different names. My name is Conrad and his name is Asa, and I feel differently about my name than Asa feels about his name. Asa doesn't necessarily identify much with his first name, but his first name and last name together he does identify with. He also talked about how growing up, he frequently, when he would tell people his name, would get the response, oh, that's an interesting name, or that's a unique name. I don't hear that name often, Asa. It made him think I am a unique person. I need to act like an individual. So Asa deliberately would do things to distinguish himself from the norm. And I think that's super interesting. I think a similar thing happened to me with Conrad, because I grew up as a Conrad around 0 other Conrads. There was one Conrad in the grade above me, but I never talked to him. And so I built entirely my own definition of what Conrad meant. And there are a lot of Conrads in Germany. And I asked my ex-girlfriend, who was from Germany once, what type of person she associated the name Conrad with. Because she knew a bunch of Conrads. She was like, oh, in Germany, Conrad is like frat guy, business guy, like finance frat guy. And I thought that was very interesting because, I guess it's essentially like the Kyle or Chad of Germany. And I grew up completely void of that association. In my eyes, Conrad was always a much softer. When I think of like business finance frat guy, I think of like a square. And when I think of myself growing up forming an identity, I think of a circle. I associate the name Conrad with a more softer person. But in looking into nominative determinism, I found all this cool stuff about how you form your idea of yourself in relation to other people and how feedback on your own performance influences how you view the person who gave the feedback. You're more likely to view that person positively if they gave you good feedback. You're more likely to think that a teacher is good at teaching if you get a good grade, even if you learn less than a teacher that gave you a bad grade. If you learn a bunch of stuff in a class and end up with a bad grade, you're gonna go, oh, that's a shitty teacher. Give me a fucking bad grade, what an asshole. But if you learn less, but get a good grade, you're like, oh my god, I did awesome. What an awesome teacher. I think another interesting concept in here is the idea of ownership. So you own the name, and the name also owns you, in a way. And when you're a kid, I think that's much stronger, because you're building your idea of what the world is and what you are and how you relate to the world. So when you're a kid and you pick up a stick, that stick becomes much more a part of you as it does when you're an adult. When you're an adult and you pick up a stick, you have no problem just putting that stick back down. That stick's part of the woods, pick it up, hold it, put it back down, it's part of the woods. When you're a kid, you pick up that stick, that's a part of you now. That's your stick. You have immediately merged that stick with your identity. So when I was a kid and I would walk in the woods and I would pick up a stick, I would always have this heartfelt goodbye with it when I would put it down. Or I would just take it back to my house and put it in front of my house because that's mine. So it was much harder to distinguish myself from my environment as a child. And in turn, harder to distinguish myself from what people thought of me, my name, what they told me. And I didn't find out that the name Conrad means courage until much later than, the beginning of my life. So I didn't associate myself much with that concept. I wasn't like, oh, I'm courageous strong Conrad. I was like, I'm just Conrad, you know, the guy who is the son of my mom and dad. So there's also the idea that based on just the amount of exposure you have to the letters that are in your name, you're more likely to associate with those letters or choose those letters. So like in the paper, they say that a guy named Steve Spencer is more likely to live in Sarasota than he is in Miami because the name Steve Spencer shares more letters with Sarasota than it does Miami. And I think that's kind of interesting, but I don't think it really amounts to very much. Like, yeah, my name's Conrad, so when I see the word concrete, I'm gonna associate with it more heavily. Actually, that's an interesting example because there was one kid in 4th grade that gave me the nickname Concrete. I think it was meant as like you're sturdy, and so that did sort of influence my identity a bit. But anyway, I don't think that there is like a concrete answer to this question. Do people's names influence how they present themselves? I think they do, and I think it's different for every person. Anyways, that's a good question. I like that question. Whoever asked that question must be really smart and beautiful. The next question comes from my friend Ryan through my email, conradjohnsonvideos@gmail.com. And if you want me to answer your question, more likely, send it there. Does the poop push the farts out, or do the farts push the poop out? Ryan, thank you for this wonderful question. This is going to spark, I think, some explosive discussion. I have to say, I don't think it's really either. Neither is really pushing either. They move independently of each other. What is possible is for poop to trap gas, or for gas to trap poop. And those are both very unfortunate situations. It's more likely that poop will trap gas than gas will trap poop. If you've got a lot of poop sitting in there, and it's fully blocking your rectum, gas is not going to be able to get out, and gas is going to build up. And then when you do poop that poop out, that's going to allow the gas to then leave. And poop and farts get pushed out kind of by the same types of contractions in your rectum and anus. Poop requires more complicated contractions involving the pelvis as well, the pelvic floor. And in looking into this question, it brought up another question for me, which is, are farts stinkier if you already have poop in your butt? And guys, I got an answer that I wasn't expecting. No. I thought it was going to be yes. I thought that whenever I haven't pooped in like a day, my farts are stinkier. So I think definitely it's got to have something to do with each other. It's got to be that when you fart and you already have poop in there, the fart kind of goes through the poop and like pushes some, has more poop particles in there and it smells worse. But in actuality, it's probably that your poop smells bad for the same reason your farts smell bad. The food you ate coming into contact with the bacteria in your gut. Sometimes that's gonna smell worse than other times. So sometimes you're gonna have smelly farts and smelly poop, or not so smelly farts and not so smelly poop. I think I sort of answered that. Sorry, Ryan, poop doesn't push farts and farts don't push poop. But I think poop pushes farts more than farts push poop. But they push each other less than I thought that they did. All right, guys, this is the part of the video where I ask you a question and you get back to me in the comments or in the email, and then we talk about it next time. If you're comfortable sharing your name, share your name, and tell me a little bit about how it has influenced how you present yourself or perceive yourself. That's your assignment. Get back to me for the next video. Thank you guys all for watching. Press like, press subscribe. If you're on your phone, press hype. That helps me a lot. And I will see you guys in the next Conrad's House video. Bye.